The ballroom went silent when Evelyn Hart lowered her gavel and ignored Dante Moretti's raised paddle. $48 million hung in the air. One more accepted bid would return the Belladonna Hotel to Dante's family. Without it, the property would go to Adrian Vale, the rival beneath the eastern balcony. Miss Hart, Dante's voice carried without effort. I bid 48. Evelyn stood beneath the chandeliers in a midnight blue gown, cut to honor every generous curve she had once been taught to hide. 300 guests watched her fingers tighten around the walnut gavel. I can't accept that bid. A murmur swept through the room. Dante rose from the Moretti table. In his black tuxedo, he looked less like a bidder than a verdict. That morning, before the doors opened, he had placed the black paddle in her hand and said, "If I lift this, I trust you to see me." Now she saw him. She also saw the man near the service arch slipping 2 fingers beneath his jacket. Evelyn shifted half a step, putting the marble podium between Dante and the stranger's line of sight. "The bid is valid," Dante said. "Not from that paddle." His gaze dropped to the black lacquer marked with the Moretti crest. It had passed registration. Evelyn herself had checked it 2 hours earlier. Adrian Vale leaned back, making no attempt to hide his amusement. Perhaps the lady has reached her limit. Dante's eyes never left Evelyn. She was hired to recognize numbers, Adrian. Apparently, 48 is where they become difficult. The laughter was restrained, the kind wealthy people used when cruelty came from a powerful man. Heat climbed Evelyn's neck, but she didn't lift the gavel. For 6 years, she had protected sellers from false bids and hidden partners. Dante knew that. He had trusted her with private estates no outsider could see. 3 nights ago, he had brought her coffee because she refused to leave the catalog unfinished. Tonight, he made her competence a joke. The auction clock above the balcony changed to 11:58. "You have 2 minutes," she said. "Do not sign anything after midnight." Dante's expression hardened. "Accept my bid." She looked again toward the service arch. The stranger pressed something under his jacket. At once, a small red light appeared on the base of Dante's paddle. That light had not been there during registration. No. The word cost her, the Belladonna commission, enough to clear the remaining balance on her mother's cardiac treatment. It cost her the reputation she had spent 12 years building. Dante knew both facts. She saw the knowledge flicker across his face, but anger buried it. "Then close the lot," Adrian called. Evelyn's throat tightened. Auction law and the hotel's court-approved sale order left her no room to invent a delay. The last recognized offer belonged to Vale Holdings. She lifted the gavel. Belladonna Hotel, sold for $47,500,000. The strike sounded like a gunshot. Dante reached the stage before the applause began. He did not touch her. Somehow, the distance he left between them hurt more. "You just handed my family's hotel to my enemy. I stopped you from buying it with that paddle. That is not an explanation. It's the only one I can give you here." His security chief, Marco Vescari, came up the steps with 2 guards. Marco held a tablet displaying Evelyn's auction credentials. "Her access was used at 11:41 to replace the registered paddle certificate," he said. "The system shows her approval." Evelyn stared at him. "I never approved a replacement." Marco turned the screen toward Dante. Her name and signature were there. Dante's face emptied of the private warmth she had spent years pretending not to notice. "Remove her credentials," he ordered. "Escort her out." The guards took her arms. Evelyn did not struggle. As they pulled her from behind the podium, she looked past Dante. The stranger near the service arch had vanished. In his place, on the carpet, lay a brass auction token engraved with the Moretti crest and a single dark drop of blood. "Stop." Evelyn planted her heels before the guards could pull her through the service doors. She pointed toward the bloodied token on the ballroom carpet. "That belongs in an evidence sleeve. Don't let anyone touch the engraving." One guard glanced at Marco. The security chief bent, picked up the token with his bare hand, and dropped it into his pocket. "It belongs to the Morettis," he said. "It belongs to the court record now. Every bidder received a numbered token paired with a registered paddle. If that one was near the arch, The pairing log can tell us which paddle sent the red signal. Marco's expression barely shifted. Your concern for procedure is touching. The doors closed behind them, muffling Adrian Vale's celebration. Evelyn felt the loss of the Belladonna like another body in the corridor. The commission she had sacrificed was gone. So was the last payment scheduled for her mother's surgery on Friday. Still, she kept walking instead of giving the guards the struggle Marco seemed to expect. At the end of the corridor, a young auction clerk came running with a leather case hugged to her chest. June Park had spent the evening recording bids by hand, a practice Evelyn required even when clients complained it looked old-fashioned. "The confirmation papers are ready," June said breathlessly. Then she saw the guards. "Evelyn? Take the handwritten register to Nora Kim," Evelyn said. "Only Nora. Get a signed receipt." Marco stepped between them. "All auction materials stay on site. The register belongs to the court-appointed escrow attorney. Your authority was revoked. After the hammer fell, the record was created before that." June hesitated. Evelyn gave her the small nod they used whenever a bidder tried to pressure the staff. June turned and disappeared through the kitchen before Marco could decide whether stopping her would draw too much attention. That was when Dante entered the corridor. He had removed his bow tie. His collar was open, but anger still held the rest of him in perfect order. "Vale wants the transfer signed at midnight," he said. "My attorneys say the auctioneer can file an irregularity notice before confirmation." For one brief second, his eyes went to Evelyn, as they always did when a sale became complicated. He expected her to find the hidden rule, the overlooked signature, the quiet way out. 6 years of dependence survived even while trust did not. "I can file it," Evelyn said, "but I won't invent grounds because you lost." His mouth tightened. "You rejected the grounds when you rejected my bid. Your paddle had been replaced." Marco held up the tablet. "By her credentials." Evelyn turned to Dante. "The original paddle had the crest inlaid clockwise. I checked it myself. The one in your hand was reversed." Dante looked down. A tiny flaw in the mother-of-pearl crest placed the sword on the wrong side of the shield. He had noticed Evelyn's details before. She was the woman who caught forged signatures by the pressure left on the paper beneath them. The woman who remembered which bidder favored his injured shoulder and which one lied by switching hands. He had once told her that nothing escaped her. Tonight, doubt reached his face and died there. "Who touched it after registration?" he asked. "Your security team carried the sealed case to the ballroom," Evelyn said. Marco's voice cooled. "And Miss Hart opened that case at 11:41. "No. I was on stage reviewing the reserve announcement. The camera will settle it." He tapped the screen. A grainy still appeared. It showed a woman in a midnight blue gown entering the registration room at 11:41. Her face was turned away, but her height, dark hair, and curves matched Evelyn's. Dante studied the image. "You said you were on stage." "I was." "Then tell me who can prove it." Evelyn thought of the ceiling camera above the podium. Before she could answer, every light in the corridor went out. A metal door slammed near the kitchen. Someone seized Evelyn from behind and drove a hard object beneath her ribs. "The register," a man whispered against her ear. "Call the clerk back, or your mother won't make it to Friday." Evelyn did not call June back. The object beneath her ribs felt too broad to be a gun barrel. A brass edge scraped through the silk of her gown. The attacker had pressed an auction token against her and expected darkness to turn it into a weapon. "She's already gone," Evelyn said. "Hurt me, and you lose the register." The pressure increased. "Call her." Evelyn drew a breath, then drove her heel down on the man's instep. It was not graceful or strong enough to stop him. It bought 1 second. She threw herself toward Dante's last known position. A hand caught her waist as the emergency lights flashed red. Dante pulled her behind him while Marco's guards raised their weapons. The attacker was already through the kitchen door, leaving a streak of blood across the push bar. Evelyn looked down. A shallow cut marked her side. "You're bleeding," Dante said. "Not all of it is mine." His hand remained at her waist until she stepped away. Only then did he release her. Marco sent 2 guards into the kitchen. "Lock down the hotel." "Right." "Don't," Evelyn said. If June sees Moretti security coming after her, she'll run. Perhaps she should, Marco replied. She left with restricted evidence on your order. Dante looked between them. Where would she take it? Evelyn could not say Nora's office again. The attacker knew about her mother's surgery and had heard enough to demand the register. Someone in the corridor was feeding him information, or the Moretti radios were compromised. Somewhere the sale record can't be rewritten. Dante's anger sharpened. You expect trust while refusing to give me a location? I expect you to notice that the man who grabbed me knew what was in that case. That silenced him. Evelyn went to the security desk beside the ballroom doors. A scanner used for bidder check-in sat beneath the monitor. She held out her hand to Marco. The black paddle. It's evidence. Then scan it yourself. Marco did. The scanner flashed red, the same light Evelyn had seen from the stage. A message appeared. Secondary credit authorization active. Dante moved closer. What does that mean? It means this paddle wasn't backed by the cash deposit your attorneys approved. Someone attached a lender to it. A lender for the hotel? Maybe. Evelyn studied the screen, opened the bidder packet. Marco did not move. Dante reached past him and entered his personal authorization. The packet appeared with a replacement certificate, time-stamped 11/41, and a financing appendix added 3 minutes later. Evelyn clicked only the document index. Opening the appendix could notify whoever controlled the lender account. The innocent explanation is that your attorney added emergency financing when the bidding passed your cash limit, she said. He didn't, Dante answered. Then we need the original certificate and the handwritten register. Together, they prove which token was paired before the replacement. Marco folded his arms. Or they let you erase the record of what you did. Evelyn ignored him. The appendix title contained 4 words: Belladonna Acquisition and Consolidation Note. Consolidation meant other assets had been bundled with the hotel. Accepting Dante's final bid would not merely have purchased Belladonna. It would have activated a debt against something else he owned. She pointed to the closing time. This becomes binding when the winning bidder signs the confirmation after midnight. I wasn't the winning bidder, Dante said, because I refused you. For the first time, he looked at her without anger, answering first. Evelyn's phone vibrated inside her evening bag. The hospital. She answered on speaker, only long enough to hear a nurse say, Miss Hart, a member of your family requested that your mother be moved to a private cardiac floor. I have no other family. The line went dead. A message arrived from an unknown number. It contained a photograph of her mother asleep in a hospital bed. Beside her pillow lay a matching brass token engraved with the Moretti crest. Evelyn turned. Marco's pocket was empty. Dante saw the photograph before she locked the screen. What was beside her? Nothing. He caught her wrist, not hard, but with the old certainty that people eventually surrendered when he demanded it. Evelyn. She pulled free. If you ever trusted my judgment, don't sign anything tonight. Don't call the hospital from a Moretti phone, and don't send your men there. Tell me why. Because whoever replaced your paddle is close enough to hear us. Across the desk, Marco's radio gave a single burst of static. Then June's frightened voice came through it. Evelyn, they found me. June? Evelyn grabbed Marco's radio. Static answered her. Then, a man's voice said, 7 minutes. Certify the sale. The transmission ended. Dante reached for the radio, but Evelyn held it against her chest. A camera above the security desk tilted toward them. The movement was slight. She would have missed it if her work had not trained her to watch where bidders looked when they lied. Someone was watching. Her phone lit with a second photograph. June sat on the concrete floor of the underground garage, her hands bound with plastic ties. The leather register case was not beside her. Beneath the image was a scanned form requiring Evelyn's signature. It certified that Dante's paddle had been rejected as an isolated registration problem and that Adrian Vale's winning bid remained clean. Once filed, the court-appointed escrow agent could confirm the sale. Another message followed. Signed by 12/7. No Moretti men in the garage. Your mother's oxygen goes first. Evelyn turned her phone face down. "Marco, clear the garage," she said. The security chief stared at her. "June is down there. Your men are what they want." "Who are they?" Dante demanded. Evelyn looked at the moving camera. If she named the hospital, called Nora, or let Dante send his guards below, the people monitoring them could act before anyone reached either hostage. "I don't know. Show me the phone." "No." The word landed harder than her refusal in the ballroom. Dante stepped closer. "You rejected my bid. Your credentials replaced my paddle. Your clerk removed the only paper record. And now you want my men withdrawn while she is supposedly in danger." "Supposedly?" Pain flashed across his face, but he did not take the word back. Evelyn opened the certification on the security terminal. "If I sign this, Vale's purchase goes forward." "Then don't. Your false paddle carried a consolidation loan. If your bid had been accepted and you signed after midnight, whatever collateral sits inside that appendix would have been exposed. And now you want me to believe you gave away Belladonna to save me. I want you to stop treating control like proof." For a moment, neither moved. She remembered Dante standing alone with her after his father's estate auction, trusting her to close the final room, because grief had left him unable to speak. He had placed the walnut gavel in her case himself. She had mistaken that trust for something durable. The clock changed to 12:05. Marco's tablet chimed. He looked down, then slowly turned the screen toward Dante. "A payment cleared this afternoon from the Vale Community Foundation. $86,000 to St. Catherine's Hospital." Evelyn's stomach dropped. Her mother's remaining balance. "I didn't authorize that," she said. Marco opened the attached note. "Patient account, Lillian Hart, requested by Evelyn Hart." Dante went still. The forged camera image, the replaced paddle, and the hospital payment formed the story someone wanted him to see. Evelyn had rejected his bid because Vale had purchased her loyalty at the exact price of her mother's life. "Dante, look at me." He did, but the man who had brought her coffee 3 nights ago was gone. "Was any of it real?" he asked quietly. The question cut deeper than his laughter in the ballroom. He was not asking about the bid. He was asking about 6 years of late nights, private sales, and silences that had begun to feel like a language only they shared. Evelyn placed her hand on the digital signature pad. "If I sign this, do not challenge it tonight," she said. "Do not send Marco to the hospital, and do not enter the garage for 10 minutes. That sounds like instructions from Vale. They are mine." The clock changed to 12:06. Evelyn signed. The confirmation transmitted to Nora's escrow account. A green notice appeared. "Sale eligible for court confirmation." Dante's expression closed. "I trusted you inside rooms where I trusted no one," he said. "I thought your judgment was the one thing money could not buy. It couldn't. The receipt says otherwise." "Then you never knew me." He flinched, but when Marco asked what to do with her, Dante answered without hesitation. "Remove her from every Moretti property. If she contacts my family, my attorneys, or anyone connected to Belladonna, treat it as hostile." Evelyn waited for him to reconsider. He didn't. 2 guards marched her through the service entrance. The black sport utility vehicle, waiting outside, carried no Moretti plates. Evelyn stopped. The guard behind her pressed the brass token against her wounded side. "Get in," he whispered. Evelyn climbed into the sport utility vehicle because the brass token at her ribs hid a blade. The driver was the man from the service arch. Blood soaked the cuff beneath his jacket, confirming that the drop on the ballroom carpet had been his. Before the rear door closed, Evelyn pressed her wounded side against the chrome handle. A dark smear marked the metal. She caught the edge of her gown on the latch and left a strip of midnight blue silk behind. Then the vehicle pulled away. Inside Belladonna, Dante watched the clock reach 12:16. 10 minutes had passed. "Search the garage," he ordered. Marco's men found June inside a locked maintenance room. Her wrists were bruised, but she was conscious. Dante questioned her beside the open door, while a medic checked her breathing. "I delivered the register to Nora," June said. "I got a receipt, just like Evelyn told me. 2 men grabbed me when I came back through the kitchen." Marco frowned. "Why return?" "My staff was still working." Dante crouched in front of her. Did Evelyn tell you to remove or alter anything? No, she told me to protect the original. The answer opened the first crack. If Evelyn had taken Vale's money to corrupt the sale, she had preserved the one record capable of exposing the replaced paddle. She had sent it to the only attorney neither Vale nor the Morettis could command. Dante rose. Get Nora on a private line. Marco followed him into the security office. You are letting sentiment interfere with evidence. Evelyn just cost me $48 million. Sentiment is not what I'm feeling. The words sounded true until Dante passed the chair where she had been sitting. A drop of her blood remained on the leather. He remembered the way she had looked at him after he ordered her removed. She had not begged for her job or asked him to pay her mother's debt. She had waited for him to know her. Nora Kim confirmed that the handwritten register was sealed in court escrow. Its final entry placed Evelyn at the ballroom podium from 11:37 until the hammer fell. The security image shows her entering registration at 11:41, Dante said. Then one of the records is false, Nora replied. Dante ordered the raw ballroom feed. Marco produced a file with a 4-minute gap caused by what he called a camera restart. Convenient, Dante said. He requested the live stream copy instead. Marco could control Belladonna's internal cameras, but the auction had been broadcast to remote bidders through an independent service. At 11:41, Evelyn stood beneath the chandeliers, reading the court-mandated reserve clause. Her face and voice were clear. She could not have replaced the paddle. Marco stared at the screen. She had an accomplice dressed like her. Then why did your report identify her before checking the external recording? Because her credentials were used. You also knew about the Vale Hospital payment before I knew it existed. Marco's jaw tightened. My job is to know threats against you. Dante looked at the pocket where the bloodied token had disappeared. Where is the token? Taken during the blackout. From the pocket of my security chief. Marco reached for anger. It came too quickly. Dante gave him a false piece of information. Nora says the original token pairing was copied to my father's private Belladonna archive. It was a lie. That archive had been emptied after his father's death. Marco left the office 3 minutes later, claiming he needed to coordinate the search. Dante waited, then called the Moretti Fleet insurer instead of the security desk. The risk officer reported that 2 company vehicles had moved without dispatch orders. One was Marco's sedan. The other was Security Unit 14, a black sport utility vehicle assigned to prisoner transport. Its plates had been removed, but the sealed insurance transponder still reported every 15 minutes. Disabling it would have immobilized the engine. Unit 14 had left Belladonna at 12:07. The latest route point placed it heading east toward the abandoned Moretti auction warehouse on River Street, the building that had once housed his father's private archive. Marco had acted on the lie. Dante ended the call and discovered that Marco had already moved against him. 6 members of the family council appeared on the office screen. Vale's attorney had informed them that Dante was interfering with a court-approved sale and accusing his own security chief without cause. Until an emergency vote the next evening, Dante's authority over family security was suspended. Marco entered with 4 armed guards. You wanted Evelyn treated as hostile, he said. I followed your order. Dante looked at the men who would have obeyed him an hour ago. Correcting his mistake had already cost him command. Where is she? Marco smiled without warmth. You threw her out. Dante stepped backward, struck the fire alarm, and shattered the emergency lights with the steel chair. In the red confusion, he escaped through the records door and reached the underground loading bay. His personal car remained outside the family fleet system. Before starting the engine, he opened the insurer's latest image from Unit 14. The rear door bore a dark blood smear. A strip of midnight blue silk fluttered from the latch. Evelyn had left him a trail. This time, Dante chose to follow it. The warehouse had once held rare furniture, sealed wine collections, and the private estates of men who did not want their names printed in auction catalogs. Now Evelyn sat beneath a hanging work lamp with her wrists bound to a steel chair. The driver with the wounded hand placed a signature tablet in front of her. His partner stood by the loading door, watching the street. "Withdraw the handwritten register from escrow," the driver said. "Tell Nora Kim it contained clerical errors. She'll require my live signature and a recorded explanation. Then give her both." Evelyn studied the screen. The request form carried her license number and the Belladonna case file, but the withdrawal destination was a private holding account controlled by Vale's attorneys. Behind the form, one document remained open. The consolidation note listed 51% of Moretti Maritime as collateral. If Dante's final bid had been accepted and confirmed, default on the manufactured loan would have transferred voting control of his legitimate shipping company. Her refusal had cost him Belladonna. It had saved everything connected to the harbor. "Sign," the driver said. Evelyn entered the wrong license code. The screen rejected it. She did it again. The driver seized her hair. "Once more, and I cut something your pretty dresses won't hide." Evelyn entered a third false code. The tablet locked and triggered the warehouse's fraud alarm. A steel shutter began descending over the loading door. The second man lunged for the wall controls. Evelyn kicked the tablet stand into the driver's injured hand. He shouted and dropped the brass token. Its sharpened edge skidded beneath her chair. She hooked it with the toe of her shoe, dragged it close, and twisted her bound hands until her fingers found the metal. The edge cut her palm before it cut the plastic tie. The driver recovered first. Evelyn threw herself sideways as he grabbed her shoulder. Chair and body struck the concrete together. Pain tore through her wounded ribs, but one hand came free. She slashed the remaining tie and crawled beneath the catalog table. Gunfire cracked near the loading door. Dante had followed Unit 14's delayed route signal to the warehouse. He used the half-closed shutter as cover, fired at the overhead lamp, and plunged the center aisle into darkness. "Evelyn, don't come closer," she shouted. He stopped. The driver dragged her upright and locked an arm across her throat. Evelyn felt the brass blade return to her side. "Drop the gun," he told Dante. Dante placed his weapon on the floor. The attacker began pulling Evelyn toward the rear exit. A red release cord hung beside the old freight gate above them. Evelyn had inspected that gate during the Moretti estate auction 4 years earlier. The counterweight was too heavy to lift without power, but cutting the emergency cord would drop it. She stamped backward onto the driver's wounded foot and seized the cord with both hands. The gate crashed between her and the attacker. He jumped away before it struck him, but Evelyn fell on Dante's side. Dante reached for her. She raised one bloody hand. "Don't." He froze, then lowered his arm. The choice cost them seconds. Instead of lifting her, he slid his gun across the floor and moved back far enough to give her space. "Can you stand?" "Not quickly. Tell me what you need." It was the first command he had surrendered to her. "Call Nora from your personal phone. Tell her no withdrawal request is valid unless I appear in person. Then call St. Catherine's main desk, not the private cardiac floor." Dante obeyed. While he spoke, Evelyn used the chair to pull herself upright. The driver and his partner escaped through the rear passage rather than fight without leverage. They took the signature tablet, but left the printed consolidation summary beneath the lamp. Nora secured the register under a judge's hold. A nurse at St. Catherine's confirmed that Lillian Hart was still in her original room. The transfer order had been canceled when the requesting relative failed the hospital's security questions. Evelyn closed her eyes for one unsteady breath. "June is safe," Dante added. "She delivered the register before they took her. Because she followed the rule you mocked." "Yes." He removed his jacket and placed it over the back of the chair instead of around Evelyn's shoulders. "If you want it," he said. She took it only to press the lining against her bleeding palm. Dante picked up the printed summary. Marco's security authorization appeared beside the replacement paddle request. Vale's holding company appeared as the lender. It did not prove who designed the scheme, but it proved Evelyn had refused the bid that would have stripped Dante of his company. His face changed as he read. "I handed you to them. You gave an order. Marco chose who carried it out. That does not make my part smaller." Evelyn looked at him, exhausted and furious. "Knowing that is not the same as repairing it." "I know." For once, he did not ask her to ease his guilt. An engine started behind the warehouse. Dante reached for his gun, but Evelyn caught his wrist. "They want us chasing the men who ran," she said. "The document says Vale's purchase becomes final only if the Moretti Council waives its right to challenge before 9 tomorrow morning." Marco moved the vote. Dante looked at his watch. 8 hours remained. "Can you help me stop it?" Evelyn released his wrist. "I can help stop them," she said. "That is not the same as helping you." Evelyn did not leave the warehouse until Dante agreed to 3 conditions. "You do not speak for me," she said. "You do not send anyone near my mother without my permission. And if this plan threatens June or my mother, Belladonna goes to Vale." Dante held her gaze. "Agreed." "No qualifications?" "None." They drove first to an all-night clinic outside Moretti territory. Evelyn needed 6 stitches in her side and 3 in her palm. The doctor warned her that the bruising around her ribs would make sudden movement dangerous. She changed into borrowed black slacks and a loose gray shirt, but kept Dante's ruined jacket folded beside her. At 3 in the morning, they met Nora and June in the conference room above Nora's law office. The handwritten register lay inside a clear evidence envelope. Beside it, Nora placed the independent live stream recording and the consolidation summary recovered from the warehouse. The register and video prove Evelyn could not have replaced the paddle at 11:41, Nora said. The summary connects Vale's lender to Marco's authorization, but it is only a printout. Marco can claim it was planted. "He will," Evelyn said. June opened the register to Dante's bidder entry. His original token was M17. I wrote the pairing number here when Evelyn checked the paddle. The same number should have been stored inside the brass token that Marco picked up from the ballroom. Without that token, they could prove Evelyn had been framed, but not who had attached the consolidation loan. Nora explained the confirmation rule. At 9, Vale's purchase would become final if the Moretti Council waived its challenge and the auction security officer certified the bidder records. Because Marco had supervised registration, only he could make that certification. He had to present the physical tokens or formally report them missing under oath. "That is why the man used the token as a blade," Evelyn said. "They could not throw it away. They still need its chip." Dante leaned over the table. "Then Marco will bring it to the council. Not if he thinks we already have enough to read it," Evelyn replied. "He'll replace it first." She designed the trap using the same weakness that had exposed dishonest bidders throughout her career. People rarely panicked over what you knew. They panicked over what they believed you could prove. Nora would send a sealed notice stating that Evelyn intended to challenge the sale using token M17 and the handwritten register. The notice would not claim they possessed the token. It would say only that its pairing data would be presented. Marco would assume the wounded driver had lost it during the warehouse struggle. To keep Vale's purchase alive, he would need to locate the real token, confirm its chip, and decide whether to substitute a clean copy before his sworn certification. The council chamber's check-in reader would record whichever security credential activated it. "Marco controls that reader," Dante said. "He controls the Moretti copy," June answered. "The court required a second reader after a bidder challenged one of your father's sales. Nora's office holds it." Evelyn looked at June. "Can you operate it?" "I can compare the pairing number. I cannot authenticate Marco's security credential." "I can," Dante said. "His master key was issued under my authority." Evelyn shook her head. "If you authenticate it, he will say you created the record after turning against him." Dante absorbed the correction without arguing. Nora offered the solution. The insurer that sealed the vehicle transponder also issued Marco's security key. Its risk officer could verify the key's signature remotely while the token was scanned. That would connect the physical token to Marco's access without relying on Dante. Nora powered the court reader hours before her office normally opened. Any token tested on Belladonna's matching reader would now be copied into the court ledger before Marco could erase the local result. The plan still lacked proof that Marco knowingly created the false loan rather than approving a routine paddle replacement. Evelyn tapped the consolidation summary. "We give him one false detail. We say the original appendix names Moretti Air Freight as collateral, not maritime." If Marco corrected the collateral during the public vote, he would reveal knowledge available only to the person who created or reviewed the hidden loan. If he stayed silent, the authenticated token would still tie his key to the replacement. And if he destroys the token? June asked. Then he cannot certify Vale's sale, Nora said. The court confirmation stops. For the first time that night, the room held a path that did not depend on luck. Dante took his counsel's signet from his finger and set it before Evelyn. This authorizes my seat and speaking time, he said. Use both. She did not touch the ring. I won't become your representative. Not mine, yours. I will file a written surrender of my time. The offer cost him more than courtesy. In the Moretti Council, silence looked like weakness, and allowing an outsider to occupy his minutes could cost him leadership even if they won. Evelyn finally picked up the signet. You will sit behind me, she said. You will not interrupt when they call me a liar. Dante's face tightened. Agreed. Nora sent the sealed notice at 4:12. 7 minutes later, the court reader received a test of token M17 from Belladonna's matching machine. The credential belonged to Marco Vescari. He had taken the bait. At 8:30, Evelyn returned to the Belladonna ballroom. The auction podium had been removed. In its place stood a long black table where 9 members of the Moretti Council waited to decide whether the family would surrender its right to challenge Vale's purchase. Marco sat at the center as acting security chief. Adrian Vale occupied the witness table beside him. A court clerk watched through a live video connection because the council's waiver would determine whether the sale could be confirmed at 9. Evelyn walked slowly to Dante's empty chair. Her ribs resisted every breath, and white bandages covered her palm. She placed Dante's signet on the table. Dante Moretti has surrendered his speaking time to me. Marco looked toward Dante, who had taken a chair against the wall behind her. The Don now hides behind an auctioneer, Marco said. Several council members smiled. Dante's hands tightened on his knees, but he did not rise. He had promised not to interrupt when they called her a liar. Remaining silent cost him more than drawing a weapon would have. Evelyn began with the handwritten register and independent livestream. Nora displayed both through the court connection. The timestamps proved Evelyn had been on stage when her credentials entered the registration room. Marco did not fight that conclusion. Miss Hart did not personally replace the paddle, he said. Her accomplice did. He produced a sworn statement from the wounded driver, identified as Rafe Dugan, a temporary member of Belladonna's security staff. According to the statement, Evelyn had promised him part of the Vale payment if he used her credentials to change Dante's bidder packet. Rafe claimed he had frightened June only after she tried to keep their shared plan secret. June stood. That is a lie. Marco signaled the guards. Remove her. Nora went with June, taking the sealed register. Evelyn lost her most reliable assistant and the physical record in the same moment. Marco then displayed the hospital payment, Evelyn's clean sale certification, and the security image of the woman in the blue gown. She had motive, payment, and an accomplice dressed to resemble her, he said. Her refusal made Vale the winning bidder. Nothing presented today changes that fact. The council members looked at Evelyn with the same polite contempt she had seen from bidders who assumed a curvy woman holding a gavel was decoration rather than authority. Present token M17, the court clerk instructed. Marco removed a brass token from a sealed envelope. It had been polished clean. He scanned it on Belladonna's reader, and the screen showed Dante's original registration with no secondary loan attached. My master key tested the token after Miss Kim's notice arrived, Marco said. That was my legal duty as security chief. The explanation was reasonable. It turned their bait into proof that Marco had performed his job. Evelyn mentioned the hidden appendix exactly as planned. The consolidation note pledged Moretti air freight. Marco did not correct her. Adrian Vale's attorney presented an alleged original appendix. It listed hotel revenue as the only collateral and contained no reference to air freight or Moretti Maritime. The warehouse printout was manufactured, the attorney said, possibly by Miss Hart after she realized her plan had failed. Marco had seen through the false detail and refused to expose his private knowledge. Worse, He had brought a token that appeared clean, and a witness willing to place every crime at Evelyn's feet. The council chair called for the vote. Evelyn raised her bandaged hand. As the licensed auctioneer, I request a physical inspection of the bidder token before certification. Marco objected, but the court clerk checked the sale order. The request is permitted. 2 minutes. A guard carried the token to Evelyn. She did not scan it. She turned it beneath the chandelier. The brass edge had been filed sharp. Dark residue remained deep inside the Moretti crest, despite the polished surface. When she pressed one fingernail against the back plate, it shifted. Someone had opened the token and moved its chip into a new shell. Marco had not been able to use a complete counterfeit. The court reader required the manufacturer's signed chip from the original M17. He had cleaned it, transferred it, and trusted his early morning test to overwrite its history. Evelyn returned the token without revealing what she had noticed. Satisfied? Marco asked. Not yet. The voting began. 4 council members immediately supported the waiver. 2 opposed it. Dante still possessed a vote, but using it would violate the surrender filed with Nora and destroy Evelyn's right to his speaking time. Marco turned toward him. Take back your seat, Dante. Admit she deceived you, and you can still save what remains of your authority. Dante looked at Evelyn. The same man who had demanded her phone and her obedience now waited for her choice. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Dante remained seated. A 5th council member voted to waive the challenge. Marco needed one more. The oldest member, Carlo Moretti, lifted his hand slowly. Before he could speak, the ballroom doors opened. June entered with Nora and the insurer's risk officer. No guards followed them. The court clerk had ordered their return after learning they carried evidence tied to the token certification. June placed a single printed receipt in front of Evelyn. At 4:19 that morning, when Marco tested M17, Nora's powered court reader had copied the chip's history before he reset it. The receipt preserved the deleted entry from 1141. Marco's master key had attached Vale's lender to 51% of Moretti Maritime. Carlo's raised hand stopped in the air. Evelyn lifted the receipt before anyone could reach for it. Carlo, keep your hand raised if you still want to waive the challenge after you hear what this proves. The old man lowered it. Marco leaned back. A printed receipt proves nothing. Miss Hart controlled the auction system. Not this system, the insurer's risk officer said. Evelyn asked him to explain without codes or technical language. Token M17 keeps a signed history inside its original chip, he said. At 1141, Marco Vescari's physical master key and live fingerprint approved a lender controlled by Vale Holdings. The collateral entered was 51% of Moretti Maritime. The ballroom erupted. Evelyn did not look at Dante. This truth belonged first to the woman everyone had laughed at when she refused his bid. Marco raised his voice above the council. My key was used because Miss Hart reported an emergency paddle replacement. She or her accomplice entered the false lender after I authorized the request. It was the strongest defense available. The credential proved his participation, but he was trying to separate approval from intent. Evelyn placed the handwritten register beside the receipt. My register shows the original paddle was intact at 10:56. The live stream proves I remained on stage from 11:37 onward. June delivered this record to Nora before anyone knew we would need it. Marco pointed at June, her accomplice. Then explain the reset, Evelyn said. The risk officer turned the receipt over. At 4:19, Mr. Vescari used the same key and fingerprint to remove the lender history from the chip. I corrected a corrupted record. You transferred the original chip into a polished shell first, Evelyn said. She asked the court clerk to order another inspection. This time, the risk officer opened the loose back plate in front of the council. The manufacturer's seal had been cut. Dried blood remained around the sharpened brass edge. Marco's polished token was the same object used to threaten Evelyn in the corridor and the warehouse. He offered one final rebuttal. Rafe Dugan handled it. His statement already admits he worked with her. Evelyn had expected that. Rafe's statement says, I gave him the token in the registration room at 11:41. The live stream proves I was standing here at that exact time. His story requires me to occupy 2 rooms at once." No one laughed now. Adrian Vale rose from the witness table. "Whatever Marco did, Vale Holdings submitted a lawful bid. My purchase should not be affected by a private Moretti dispute." Evelyn faced him. "Your foundation paid my mother's exact hospital balance hours before the sale. Your lender was attached to Dante's paddle. Your attorney presented an appendix that the token history proves was false. That is not a private dispute. That is bitter fraud." The court clerk muted the counsel and spoke into the official record. "Confirmation of the Belladonna sale is suspended. The bidder tokens, handwritten register, live stream recording, and payment records are to remain under court control." Marco's last path to victory closed. He activated his contingency. "Seal the room," he ordered the guards. "No evidence leaves until the counsel signs the waiver." 3 men moved toward Nora. The others hesitated. Marco did not draw a weapon. He did not need one. If he could force 6 signatures before 9, Vale could argue that the family had waived its challenge before the court suspended confirmation. Evelyn raised Dante's signet. "The waiver cannot be signed," she said. Marco certified a token whose seal he broke. Under the sale order, a contaminated certification returns the entire lot to court review. The counsel has nothing left to waive. The court clerk confirmed it immediately. The guards stopped. Dante remained behind Evelyn until she turned and nodded. Only then did he approach the counsel table. "Marco Vescari no longer speaks for me or for any Moretti property," he said. "Anyone who follows his order now chooses him over this family." One by one, the guards stepped away from Nora. Marco looked at Adrian Vale, but Vale's attorney was already gathering his papers. Marco had been useful only while the plan could succeed. Carlo called for a new vote. All 9 members supported Marco's immediate suspension and the surrender of his security records to Nora's court escrow. 2 guards escorted him from the ballroom he had controlled less than an hour earlier. The court clerk then addressed Evelyn. "The record reflects that your refusal prevented an unauthorized transfer of Moretti Maritime and preserved the integrity of the sale challenge. Your auction license is not under suspicion." Dante faced the same witnesses who had heard him mock her. "Evelyn Hart did not fail to recognize my bid," he said. "She understood it better than I did. She lost her commission, risked her life, and saved my company while I called her incompetent. I was wrong." Evelyn let the silence hold his admission. Then she removed Dante's signet and placed it in his open hand. "The truth gives you back your empire," she said. "It does not give you back me." The court voided the Belladonna sale 3 weeks later. Vale Holdings lost its bidder status, while fraud investigators examined the foundation payment and the false financing appendix. Marco and Rafe faced charges for kidnapping, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. The Moretti Council permanently removed Marco from every family business and transferred its security records to Nora's custody. Dante did not ask the council to protect his reputation. He signed a statement accepting responsibility for Evelyn's wrongful removal and the hostile order that placed her in Marco's vehicle. He sent it to every guest, bidder, attorney, and trade publication that had witnessed or repeated her humiliation. The statement did not describe him as deceived. It described him as wrong. He paid Evelyn the Belladonna commission she had earned, covered June's medical leave, and reimbursed the expenses caused by the kidnapping. Each payment passed through Nora under a written settlement containing no silence clause and no request for contact. Then he stepped down as chairman of Moretti Maritime for 1 year. The company adopted independent security and bidding oversight, removing the authority Marco had exploited and the unchecked control Dante had once defended. Evelyn used her settlement and savings to open Hart and Park auctions with June. Their first rule was printed above the registration desk. No client outranks the record. They won the contract to conduct Belladonna's new auction through an open court review. Evelyn refused Dante's private sponsorship, and he accepted her decision without argument. Lillian Hart underwent surgery on Friday as scheduled. Dante sent no flowers because Evelyn had not invited him into her mother's room. He waited. 2 months after the council hearing, Evelyn agreed to meet him in Nora's empty conference room. Dante arrived alone, without guards, gifts, or his signet. "I humiliated you because I was angry," he said. "I treated partial evidence as permission to stop listening. Then I gave an order that put you in the hands of the man framing you. Those choices were mine. I am sorry." Evelyn watched him carefully. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing you do not choose." "And if I never choose you?" Pain crossed his face, but he did not turn it into pressure. "Then the repairs still stand." That answer did not erase the ballroom, the vehicle, or the warehouse. It gave her room to believe that his change might survive disappointment. "Coffee," she said. "Once a week. No business, no guards at the table, no decisions about my safety without me." Dante nodded. "Your terms." "Our terms, if this becomes anything." "Our terms." 3 months later, Belladonna returned to auction under court supervision. Evelyn stood once again beneath its chandeliers, wearing a deep green gown and holding the walnut gavel that had finally been released from evidence. The ballroom was full, but no one laughed when she explained the rules. Dante sat among the registered bidders rather than at a family table. His financing had been reviewed by Nora, June, and an independent bank. When bidding reached $47,500,000, he lifted a new paddle without a crest. $48 million, he said. Evelyn checked the reader, the register, and the court clerk's confirmation. This time, every record agreed. The bid is accepted. Dante did not smile until she did. After the auction, he waited beside the empty podium while Evelyn packed her files. "Dinner?" he asked. She placed the gavel inside its case and looked at the man who had finally learned that love could not be commanded, purchased, or assumed. "You may walk me there," she said. He offered his hand, but did not close the distance. Evelyn chose to take it.